Hey guys, Marcel, Ernie Racing News, February 13th. We're talking about the UFOs, the balloons, the warmongering, the narrative around these balloons or unidentified objects, what the Pentagon is pushing out, what the government institutions are pushing out, and the mainstream media. It's like talking point after talking point about this is really serious. The Chinese have balloons in there, unidentified objects. It just comes back to it's a sense of alert. They're heightening our sense of alert. It's playing on this narrative where we're going to be kind of ready for World War III, essentially. They create this alert level, and this type of propaganda has been done before in previous wars, including World War II, including World War I. And the guys at Redacted kind of put a few pieces together, and I'm going to attach it to you right now.
All of these China UFOs are an indication that we need to be ready for war with China. This is the biggest threat to your life right now. Watch.
I think we're sending a message of what would happen, in Ukraine. Obviously, we had this incredible coalition, as you know, pushing back on the Russian invasion. And I think it's sending a message, hopefully it's sending the right message to China that the world will rally around us if they keep messing around.
Mr. Secretary, the country's got to rally around this single entity, China. Everything from the farmland they're buying, from the schools they're taking over, from the corporations that sold their soul in order to get cheap goods. This has got to be a government and a country approach.
Yeah, I'd say a whole of nation approach, as you said, Brian. And what people need to understand in our great country is that we're the underdog here. We're a third of their size. And I'm not just talking about geographic and population. And
they have more ICBMs mobile and fixed than we do.
Right, and that's why, listen, America at our best is the reluctant warrior, but we're a warrior. And we need to make sure, when you have less than 1% of the country that's serving, and you only have 26% of the country that can even serve because of the obesity crisis in America and some other things, we need to wake up and understand that we have a competitor out there in China that thinks they're the preeminent power in the world. We don't want any unnecessary wars, but we have to always prepare for the worst, God forbid.
We gotta prepare for the worst, God forbid, I quote him. That's what it's coming down to. You put the idea in our head that we're always going to be under alert, under attack, and we need to be prepared. And then essentially, now we need to protect ourselves from Russia. We need to protect ourselves from China, so we better preemptively strike them.
Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. The NORAD is part of it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
Up there in Canada. Yeah. This woman sure was stumbling, but she's just another spokesperson pushing the narrative. Let's continue.
There was a much different rationale, which I think was the appropriate rationale. We got enormous intelligence information from surveilling the balloon as it went over the United States.
Didn't the Chinese get enormous intelligence as well?
Well, they could have been getting it anyway, but we have to know what they're doing.
Are you listening to this guy? We getting enormous information, enormous intelligence from their balloon flying over. And then the guy's like, well, aren't they getting intelligence too? Well, yeah, but that doesn't matter because, we already know everything they know.
We got enormous intelligence information from surveilling the balloon as it went over the United States.
Didn't the Chinese get enormous intelligence as well?
Well, they could have been getting it anyway, but we have to know what they're doing, okay? And we don't know exactly, but we got a lot of that.
So, of course, somebody's always written a playbook for this. So here we have former FBI for terrorism, counterterrorism, John D'Souza, and he explains the plan a year ago. Boom, this is pre-forethought.
They're going to have to do something else. And I think fake alien invasion is one of the main things they have ready. And here's one of the keys to understanding fake alien invasion is that our military, for instance, our military industrial complex is so large, so huge, it's larger than many countries. There's segments of the Pentagon that I refer to as the dark Pentagon. It is military officials that are working with the cabal because they really need to get the fear up, to get back on the map with this fake alien invasion. And we're going to see a lot more politicians start supporting the Tic Tacs and the UAPs. And they're all going to be getting online to support them and to show how important they are.
How this is laying out has happened before. Just 2 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, unsubstantiated reports suddenly started proliferating all over the New York area about approaching aircraft that were coming in. It caused a minor invasion panic. People were freaking out. Stocks plummeted across New York City. So the stock market plummeted. People were freaking out. Where's fireside chats that he used to do? And he told Americans that we're declaring war on Japan. So, hey, all that fear that you had today, yeah, don't worry. That anxiety, we're going to go to war with Japan. So don't you worry about it.
So that scare tactic to create fear has supposedly been done before with wars. And it's not just in the movies. The aliens are coming. We need to get ready and shoot. The other funny aspect when you think about the movies is we always shoot first, ask questions later. And that's exactly what's happening in real life now. Let's shoot these objects first. Let's just shoot them. It's always shoot things, just shoot everything.
Of 1942, to keep the heat on the war, rhetoric for the American public, so we didn't forget about Pearl Harbor, we needed to keep this, fire going, right? The U.S. government suddenly released a ton of weather balloons. Sound familiar? And they did this over Los Angeles. And they were all designed basically to look like incoming attacking UFOs or aircraft. Like, what is descending suddenly on Los Angeles? This was the Battle of Los Angeles, it became known. Everyone freaked out just as they planned. Wow, look at all those crazy objects. Is that Japan about to attack us? Mr. President, can you protect us from the evildoers, the invaders?
How freaking ironic, huh? They released weather balloons to create fear, to keep people into fear and warmonger, to attack the Japanese, to keep the U.S. in the war, to keep people's interest. And this is what's happening, is everybody's paying attention to this. Forget about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that the U.S. has said that they did before they did it. And then, of course, now it's getting pretty well known that they did it, and it makes perfect sense that they did it. When they blamed Russia for doing it initially, which is how ridiculous is that? I'm going to blow up my own home. I'm going to blow up my own gold mine. I'm going to blow up my own pipeline. That's how we make money. That's how we have a better GDP than you. Even with Russia has the most sanctions of any country in the world in all of time, and they still are doing better than Europe.
Made all the newspapers, of course, searchlights and anti-aircraft guns comb the sky during an alarm. Everyone freaked out about it. He knows this is fake. Look at this tweet last night from Mike Flynn. Be very careful chasing shiny objects, he tweets. Just when you least expect, you'll get punched so hard in the nose, you'll not recover. Steady, boys. Steady. Reaching a level of warmongering that is beyond terrifying. My timeline is filled with stuff like this, talking about basically going to war with China. What's wrong with people? Listen to yourselves. The only objective worthy of pursuit is peaceful coexistence, not defeat of China, military or otherwise. Big pre-World War I vibes that he's saying here. Yeah, that's right.
Hey, well, there you have it. A few little tidbits from what we're talking about. Is it UFO invasion? Is it an inside job, meaning the balloons and everything else is actually flown by the USA and then shot down by the USA as like a false flag, essentially? And we've had a lot of false flags, right from 9/11 to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I mean, every single place that the U.S. takes over and wants to put in their puppet regime so they can use the territory control, money laundering, and of course use their resources, oil, gas, etc. Or number 3, is it actual weather balloons that are happening to come from China or somewhere else and have just gone too far and they lost the ability to drop the balloon remotely? Or what's the other reason? Well, I guess the other reason is also just to create a whole distraction to keep you not thinking about the Nord Stream pipeline that was blown up by the U.S. Or what about all the Twitter files and how everybody in the U.S. is now getting beaten by the committee where the Twitter executives are trying not to go to jail and for essentially changing the course of the election because that is jail worthy. They influenced and they sabotaged a presidential election. Influence, or what's the word for it? You guys know it. manipulating a presidential election. And of course, the Hunter Biden laptop was part of that, and how that was suppressed by the Democrat Twitter bitches, just like the Roth guy and these other ones, if you've been seeing some of the stories. So anyways, guys, distraction or false flag or both, or is it actual UFOs, or is it actual weather balloons and just a party trick? Marcella, Ernie Racing News, guys.